Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Holiday Recipes and Survivor Stories. We're so glad you're here with us at this special time of year as we come together to reflect on holiday traditions, healing, and the mealtime difficulty that cancer survivors and their loved ones sometimes face. We know that the holidays can be complicated. They hold both joy and hardship, especially for those touched by illness. We hope today's conversation will remind us that sharing food is not the only way to celebrate and connect during the holidays, but our relationships can nourish not only the body, but also the spirit. Today, you'll hear from cancer survivors and caregivers alongside medical professionals as they share their favorite holiday traditions and the heartfelt stories behind them. We hope their stories will bring comfort, connection, and meaning to the season. Throughout the webinar, we invite you to share your thoughts, questions, and reflections in the chat. We will do our best to address them as time allows during the session. Before we get started, we want to shine a light on some of our meaningful work. If today's conversation resonates with you, please be sure to check out our growing catalog of prior webinars. Since last year, we've hosted webinars on a variety of topics that include real experiences from survivors and caregivers. You can find those incredible stories on our YouTube channel and across social media. And if you're looking for a trusted resource that supports thyroid, head, and neck cancer survivors, visit the Thank Guide, a comprehensive site designed for newly diagnosed patients, cancer survivors, and caregivers. You'll find reliable information, helpful tools, and inspiration to guide you through every step of the cancer journey. If you or someone you know is a thyroid cancer survivor, we also want to invite you to our next webinar on January 23rd, What's New in Advanced Thyroid Cancer Treatment. This will be a live, patient-focused program featuring leading thyroid experts as they share the latest updates, practical guidance, and real-time answers for patients and caregivers navigating advanced disease. To kick off this session, I'll start by briefly introducing myself. I'm Genevieve Lowry. I'm a certified child life specialist and faculty at Bank Street College of Education. I'll be your host and moderator for today's discussion, and I'm honored to be part of this important conversation and to guide us through today's programming. Now, I'd love for you to meet our wonderful panelists. Let's go around and have each of you briefly introduce yourself. Elizabeth, can we start with you?
Sure. Thanks, Genevieve. Hi, everybody. My name's Elizabeth. I'm the Executive Director for the National Foundation of Swallowing Disorders, which is a nonprofit organization for people that have trouble swallowing across the age spectrum. Outside of my role with that organization, I'm also a medical speech language pathologist. And thank you for the invitation to be here today. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Elizabeth. Cate.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Cate. I'm a registered dietitian. I work at Mount Sinai with the head and neck population and also with a variety of other cancers.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Robin, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Robin. I am a cancer survivor and head and neck cancer, specifically some, and I'm here.
Thank you, Robin. And Natalie.
I'm Natalie. I'm Robin's daughter. So here as a caregiver.
Wonderful. Thank you all for coming and sharing your experiences and your knowledge with us. And I really look forward to hearing what you all have to say. So I'd like to start off with talking to Elizabeth and Cate, thinking about the medical side of eating after treatment. So I'm pleased to welcome Elizabeth and Cate again to set the stage for us a little bit. So Elizabeth and Cate, many survivors experience real changes in how and what they're able to eat after treatment. From your perspective, what are some of the most common side effects that affect eating? Things like dry mouth, difficulty swallowing, or changes in taste.
Thanks, Genevieve. And Cate, I'll answer a few and then I'll let you take over if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Community that I work with, some of the most common side effects after going through head and neck cancer treatment that I hear about. The first one, the biggest one, I think, is dry mouth. So xerostomia. Many survivors are affected by this, and for many, it can be chronic. And the way that can affect your eating is that when you're eating foods, things that are dry and crumbly can be very challenging to make into this nice cohesive ball. To make it easier to swallow if you don't have saliva, people will need to add extra sauces or gravies to make things a little bit easier to eat. It can also cause dental problems, which can in turn make it more difficult to eat as well. So dry mouth, I would say, is one of the most common symptoms that people are affected by. Another one is dysphagia, so difficulty swallowing, whether it's the head and neck cancer itself that causes these changes or the treatment, the surgery, the radiation, or chemo that can cause this difficulty with swallowing. And it can affect so many different areas of our swallowing. So whether getting food into your mouth, chewing the food, swallowing can be affected. It can cause other changes like pneumonia, where if things are going down the wrong pipe, it can affect your safety with eating. It can make eating very uncomfortable. Another change that people experience, and for many of you who are on this call that have gone through treatment, this may resonate with you, changes in taste or smell when you're eating. And certainly that can make it more challenging to want to eat and can lead to unintentional weight loss as well. Changes like trismus too, where your jaw may not open, whether that's from radiation or surgical changes, can make it hard just to get food into the mouth. And that can be a serious issue for many survivors of head and neck cancer. And then too, I think pain, whether you're going through treatment, people can have mucositis and cause changes that affect pain or sensitivity. Different temperatures or flavors or spices can make it more challenging to eat and drink. And then dental changes too, which I mentioned earlier. If you have removal of your teeth or changes with your dentition, that can make it hard to chew foods. And Cate, I'll let you add to that too with additional side effects and changes that you notice from the patients that you work with.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. You wrapped that up pretty well. A lot of these various side effects, taste changes, dryness in your mouth. That's also important to kind of be able to alter your diet so that you're getting these adequate nutrients. That's the biggest thing that I see a lot with my patients. Now, with like taste changes, kind of, especially when you're going through treatment, most of the time, a lot of my patients come to me telling me they can't taste anything. Food tastes bad, it tastes metallic, or just tastes like cardboard, and kind of how we can work together to maybe alter some of those flavors so that we can make the best of the worst, I like to always say, the most tolerable. And after post-treatment as well, that's a big change. Sometimes one day food is going to taste horrible, and then the next day or a week later, it's going to improve. That's a lot of what are the side effects after the chemo radiation, after your treatment, is that things start to change. You might start feeling that muted sense of flavor, or that dryness might get worse, it might get better. So kind of I love to talk with my patients about, how we can alter flavors. Maybe we try different spices and different consistencies, marinades, things like that. When you're having that dryness in your mouth, maybe let's try, as long as it's not burning, but like a tart flavor, sucking on some like sugar-free candies that can help produce some extra saliva so that it's not so dry. It makes it easier for you to swallow. But also, as Elizabeth was saying, the dysphagia comes as a big issue, and we need to kind of alter what we're eating. Might not be able to be having steak all the time or having these hard, crunchy foods. So how can we alter that? The best way to do it is sometimes making a stew, making things that are nice and moist and ground up. And that can also be a way to kind of play with those flavor profiles as well, because we want to avoid any further weight loss that you might have experienced during the treatment. So we want to make sure that we're getting those adequate nutrition involved, adding yogurts and sauces and things that we might be lacking in calories during the day because we're avoiding certain foods that we're not able to tolerate, that we were able to tolerate pre-treatment. So things like that, it plays a lot of role, and food tends to be a job, which is not fun, but finding different pleasures in what we can cook or what we can kind of create can sometimes be a little peaceful.
There are a couple things that I thought were really important that you both brought out. I I think for one, just being aware of and understanding the challenges of someone who is in treatment or post-treatment, and when some of the challenges occur, I think is really important for caregivers to understand the why and how of some of those challenges so that they also have a better understanding of why their loved one doesn't want to eat in the same room with them or needs more time or can't do the same things that they had done previously. I also, the idea also of, Cate, you were talking about sometimes something doesn't taste right at this one point, but at another point it may have a different effect. So the idea even of going back and returning to something and trying again and not just dismissing it immediately and recognizing that there are changes that are occurring, I think felt really important. And the idea of play, like playing around with food, right? Like just even engaging in food activities. Um, um, that that sort of take away some of that stigma around it or some of that fear around it. But the idea of just, if you enjoyed cooking, it doesn't mean you can't still enjoy cooking. And maybe it just means enjoying it in a different way and showing it for others as opposed to eating it yourself or engaging in sort of playful activities of what can I do to this food today, right? Like, and really just making it more about the exploration and experimentation than about the food itself. So those felt really important points to me. But once those challenges show up, what are some of the things? I mean, you mentioned some, but what are some things that you've seen that help people manage that day to day? Are there specific strategies or adjustments that tend to make a difference?
I think maybe I'll start here with the dry mouth, things that can make a difference. There's certainly different techniques that you can use or over-the-counter products that can help with your dry mouth. And many of you, if you want to share in the chat what you've used that works for you, I think sharing information can be helpful. One thing I usually suggest to people is brushing your teeth before meals can help kind of stimulate that saliva production, which seems counterintuitive most of the time, but sometimes that can be something that helps just to stimulate enough saliva so that when you go to eat your meal, it's a little bit easier to chew your foods. I don't know, Cate, if that's something that you have come across. Using humidifiers during the day and at night can help keep your mouth moist so that you're sleeping better. Certainly sleep can affect people as well with the fatigue aspect. And then making sure that you have liquids if it's safe for you to drink, making sure you're staying hydrated throughout the day. And Cate, I'm sure you can add to that too, so feel free.
No, yes, I've come across similar experiences. I also think with the oral hygiene is also using those baking soda and salt rinses that we tend to recommend a lot from the surgeons, from your doctors. Sometimes that can help remove some flavor profiles that linger in your mouth. So as well as it being beneficial for the dryness, it can also help kind of if you have like a lingering flavor from breakfast and you didn't clean out your mouth as well, or you might have brushed your teeth, but then the toothpaste has a flavor to it. It's good to kind of do that before and after meals. You can kind of clear out any of those lingering flavors that might then jumpstart a new flavor profile that you're like, oh, I wasn't be able to eat this sweet treat or whatever it is. So that's really important. Humidification is really important as well, as Elizabeth was saying. Sometimes a lot of my patients tell me they don't have a humidifier, but they'll sit in a bathroom, let the hot water run, and just kind of let the steam hit them. So that kind of acts as their own humidification. A lot of my patients do that during the winter time because it tends to be very dry. So being mindful about that, especially during these colder months.
Yeah. And I
I
think,
love really, oh, sorry, go ahead, Elizabeth.
no, go ahead, Genevieve.
I was just going to say, I love really practical advice like this that are just really easy things to incorporate into somebody's daily routine that don't feel like these big additional steps that people have to do. I just think the idea of doing something that's really practical and easy to integrate into our lives is really helpful advice.
Mhm. I'm going to share some tips too for managing dysphagia. So if you're having difficulty swallowing, I think certainly working with a speech language pathologist and a dietitian to figure out what modifications to the food textures can be helpful for you, but then also thinking about different postures or positions or ways that you're consuming that food can be helpful. So for some survivors, sitting in a certain position where they're letting gravity help them take the food down through their mouth and through their throat can be helpful, where for other people, holding your breath, swallowing, and then coughing afterwards can help reduce things going down the airway. Everybody's unique in their swallowing and what has been affected. So one tip for somebody doesn't work for all. And I would always recommend working with a healthcare professional before trying different techniques to determine what really works for you and what's the safest with that. There can be exercises too that can help improve your swallowing, that you can kind of incorporate into your day to day. And so techniques like that can be beneficial for you.
Excellent. Thank you. You've both also mentioned fatigue, and there's a lot of talk about fatigue during and after treatment. Are there foods or ingredients or small additions that people can do that can support their energy levels?
Yeah, I can definitely speak on that. I think the biggest thing that people don't think about is sometimes the way we digest food. We talk about eating whole grains versus white refined grains, things that have like a lot of sweetness to them, sugary foods, can go through our bloodstream very quickly, gives us a lot of energy for in that moment, and then you kind of fatigue after that. Where if you're eating something that's very filling, like I always use oatmeal as an example, it's got some good whole grains, it's got some fiber in it, and that will let you feel more full and feel more energized throughout the day than versus that quick spurt of those sugary foods, like if you're having like a juice or something like that in the morning versus an oatmeal. Sometimes the oatmeal might help you feel full longer, but also feel more energized. Making sure you're getting enough good sources of protein is really important as well. And I know with a lot of taste changes, some people feel they have food aversions to these different protein sources. Could be red meat, it could be chicken, could be fish, but trying to play around with a variety of protein sources, whether they're animal or plant-based, can be really helpful too. And making sure, what you're eating in your day to day and what you're eating in each of your meals, making sure they're well balanced, getting enough fiber, getting enough fruits and vegetables, lean sources of protein, those whole grain foods in all of your meals can be very beneficial. I like to say always having cheese and an apple versus just an apple, you're going to feel more satisfied with that cheese and apple than you will with just the apple itself. Things like that are really important.
All right. Excellent advice. Probably good advice that we can all apply in our lives. As we head into the holidays, food is everywhere. From your standpoint, what are some realistic ways that people can protect their nutrition while still enjoying meals with family and friends?
I think this is such a great question around the holidays. And I wanted to share, I wrote this down actually. One of our community members came up with this acronym that helps her get through the holidays. And she puts on her SAC app, where each letter stands for a strategy that she uses during the holidays to manage. And so the first one, the S in SAC app, stands for self-care. And so for this one, she kind of mentally prepares, she journals what her fears are, what she's looking forward to. The A stands for her attitude. How does she go into the holiday? How does she approach it? When she was in her early years of survivorship, she would approach it with anger or sarcasm, and a little bitterness of missing out on what she used to enjoy. And she's shifted her attitude now to where she approaches it with gratitude and what am I able to do? So she shifts that. The C in her SAC cap, it stands for communication. So talking to the host about what your concerns are, what your limitations are, identifying a support person and communicating what you would like them to help you with during those, whether that's a gathering or a meal with them. The A stands assessing her capabilities. What are you able to do? What are your boundaries, your limitations? And then hold yourself to those as well. The P stands for preparing. So I think this was key for this individual that came up with this acronym, making sure you're prepared. What do you need? What sort of supplies? What tools do you need? And then setting up something like a break room during the moment. If you need to escape and just reset, making sure you're prepared to have that. And then P's, the last P, there's two P's in the SAC app. It stands for practicing. So kind of rehearse what you're going into if you have that opportunity, whether that's the meal, going through and eating this meal and seeing what you can do safely, modifying in the moment before you get into the actual gathering. So these were some practical strategies that were shared from a member in our community that's a survivor of tongue cancer. And these are how she gets through her holidays. And I thought those were some nice tips that she had shared. And Cate, I'll let you add to that.
No, I love that. That's really great. I was thinking about this question today as well. And, in my field in nutrition, we have so many people that have dietary restrictions. I have a family that some of my family members are gluten-free, they're vegan. We're always making adjustments based on those dietary restrictions. So now putting it with head and neck cancer and that these other limitations like dysphagia is something that should be at least discussed, within your family and within your friends. So I like this acronym here. I actually wrote it down because I thought that's very helpful about having that communication about what your limitations are. I think it's very difficult, when you're trying to morph different foods to be and different meals to be more dysphagia friendly. I have a lot of patients that go through treatment during the holidays, and we kind of talk about, how can we morph this diet to be, or to this meal to be more dysphagia friendly. A lot of it's blenderizing or maybe adding different foods that we don't think about, but making, like I said before earlier, like stews and soups, like things like that, that maybe instead of having the Brussels sprouts, we make a nice vegetarian soup and we kind of bring out those flavor profiles in a different way, or bring out that same dish, but make it more friendly so that we can get those same amount of nutrients, but make it more in a dysphagia friendly way.
This is great advice. I also love that acronym, and I think it leads us to there's a really good um, question in from our chat that somebody asked, how can one psychologically overcome eating in social events like birthdays, Thanksgiving, the holidays, etc.? Um, I don't know if either one of you or Natalie or Robin have some thoughts on just that feeling of wanting to participate, but maybe feeling overwhelmed by sort of the circumstances of that participation.
And for me, it is sometimes it is hard when you are in a room full of people eating and talking and sharing. And what I like to do is not eat, I might put a little bit on my plate, but I'd rather talk and socialize and be part of the party than eat. Because
But with that,
I can always eat later or before. But if you're at an event and there are friends and people you want to chat with, you can't do both. No,
I was just making sure my mom highlighted that she does have to eat before or after the event. You can't choose to just not eat that day.
Right. I think that goes back to sort of the acronym that Elizabeth was even sharing, right? Like, think about what are some of the important elements of an event that you want to be able to participate in. And although the food's an important element, it really is about the relationships with those people. So it might be more important that you um, feel comfortable to be able to talk with others. And so eating before or eating after helps you to navigate those situations a little bit um, more fully, right?
mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And so I just want to, now that we've brought Robin and Natalie into our conversation a little bit, food is never just food, right? Like, so especially during the holidays, it's memory, connection, tradition, and love. And we're so grateful to have Robin and Natalie here to share a little bit about some of the ways in which that they've um, taken some of those experiences and sort of turned them upside down a little bit. And let's start with first just asking, how has your relationship with food changed since treatment? What was something that was hard to let go of, or what was something that's been a surprise that you find that you really enjoy in a change that you've made?
Well, being the mother, I usually provide to all the cooking. So it is up to me what I serve, but I try to incorporate everyone's desires. But I have added a lot more soup to our diet. And but again, I find if it's just me and my husband, we can eat and I don't have to talk to him. If it's the family, again, I might wait till everyone's eating, we're talking and carrying on, and then sort of at a lull, or when everyone's like pretty much done, I might eat because then I can get it, have dinner. But um, it's hard. It's hard as when everyone's together. It's easier for me to eat when on the non-holiday night.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering, so I totally get that. As the mother, you're serving the meals and you still want to do that. You still want to participate actively in that and in because food is a way that we show love and connect with people. And I think that's really important to acknowledge that you're still doing that. But that when you sit down at the table, you want to talk. And so you're not eating. And so therefore you're able to still engage in that sort of family dinner. You're
Mhm.
just doing it from the position of being able to speak and share. And I think that's really important to point out that you still enjoy those family dinners. Right?
Oh yeah.
Natalie, did you want to say something?
I think one of my mom's best foods is ice cream, and so we can all always enjoy in the dessert time at the end. And then, yeah, kind of because eating isn't always easy for my mom, I think that my family is a type that doesn't spend a ton of time at the table. So maybe a little bit we will just kind of have shorter meals, and rather than like some people for Thanksgiving probably sit at the table for several hours. Instead of doing that, we'll go for walks or bike rides so that we can all be present and part of the conversation.
I love that. Were there some challenges that pushed you to rethink what a holiday gathering even looks like?
The biggest challenge is that everyone lives all over the country. Now, sometimes you have to think a little broader because, for instance, on Thanksgiving, most people want turkey. For me, turkey is a no-go. I Fish is much more my protein of choice, and we probably never had fish before on the Thanksgiving table until I was hit with all this. So we have added to our feast foods that I can participate in. Like you mentioned, Kate mentioned, like instead of Brussels sprout soup, like this year I tried a pumpkin soup, which I gave Jesse the recipe, and it's from the New York Times. And everyone enjoyed it. Who ever thought of pumpkin soup before? So, we're always looking for new ideas, but I can tell you I could not shoot up Brussels sprout or broccoli. We've added, modified, and we're, I mean, I love having everyone from home, so I'm making that turkey.
Even growing up, my sisters and I were all very picky eaters, so my mom was the type to make different meals for each of us. And now we kind of still do that, where most dinners that we have as a family will have like maybe one or two proteins, where it's like salmon and steak, or if we have hamburgers, there's also salmon. There's just always salmon on the table, but that way we can try and make sure that my mom is eating too.
That reminds me of a tip that was shared. If you're going to a place where they're hosting, offering to bring something that you know you can eat and enjoy. And even if they ask you not to bring anything, just bring it. And that way you know there's something on the table for you. that you can.
I like to do that too. And when I ask people what can I bring, and they suggest something that I can't eat, I'm like, maybe I'll bring something else.
Good for you.
It is harder when you end up somewhere and everyone's eating, and you're with people who don't, some people don't know you and your story. And they're like, so, like, there's all this great food, don't you want some? And you're like, not right now. No, I'm not hungry. I mean, you don't want to insult the hostess by not participating, but I mean, usually your friend knows, but maybe their friends don't know, you know. So.
Yeah, this brings me to a question about communication, but I'm really curious about um, how Natalie and Robin, your family figured this out. Like, how did you communicate with each other to get to a place where it is like, okay, we can't do this way anymore. So we want to include the walks and the bike rides and instead, right? Like that's become more your family time. So I'm wondering how you learned that about um, each other and about having a head and neck cancer.
Yeah, I can take a first stab at it. But so my mom was diagnosed when I was in second grade, and now I'm almost 30. So this has been in our family for a very long time where my mom was kind of battling until I was in mid-high school, and then luckily had a great surgery in high school, which put her into remission. But since then, that's I feel like when the swallowing really went downhill. And we sit at we are a family dinner family. Every night we have family dinner when I was growing up. And so that meant that we were all there while my mom was kind of choking down dinner. Um, and we would try, my family, I would say patience isn't always one of our strengths. So we would be our most patient at dinner to kind of help my mom get through it and then move on. But over time you start to realize that what you're doing isn't really working, and so you have to make adjustments. And whether that means like if my mom wants to participate in the conversation to some degree, like we have to make the adjustment of her eating before and maybe one of us sitting with her while she's doing it or giving her the alone time to do that on her own. And then in general we aren't really we like to be active. And so I think the shift towards walking or biking was a really natural one for our family, where it was like, why are we going to spend so much time doing something that my mom can't enjoy? So let's do other things too.
We're a pretty active family, so it fit right into get outside and enjoy the other things besides food.
I think it's, what it really points to is having conversations with one another and being able to recognize what are the other ways that we can connect and form relationships that aren't around, that don't focus around food and taking, sort of food out of the equation and finding, and you say you're an active family, so that was a natural kind of transition. And it might be for other families that might be um, a shared love of music or reading or art or something that people are engaging in other activities together in order to still continue those real strong family and form those really strong family connections. Beautiful. So you've talked about going for bike rides, you've talked about walking. Are there other things that you guys do together that create that sense of togetherness beyond the table?
Well, we were just in Patagonia
Yes.
with Natalie and her fiance.
Yeah, our family likes to travel. We ski together, which is really fun. We play cards. So, like, I feel like holiday time, sometimes it's colder. Cards are a nice way to still be around a table, but not eating. Um, but yeah, we have a lot of family time.
That's nice. That's nice. Actually, someone in the chat mentioned game night just before you said cards.
Yep.
I think that's a great way to connect with families. Kate and Elizabeth, do you have any suggestions from other families that you guys have worked with that of ways that they've communicated this with each other, or things that they do that help them stay connected, sort of like decentralizing this idea of food?
Yes, yeah, I have a few examples that I can share. from members of our support group, one person during the holidays always volunteers to be the dishwasher. So while the food is being prepared, they wash the dishes, they kind of run the food to the table, and their family just has an understanding that they don't sit at the table to eat with them, but they want to show their love and support and be part of the holiday tradition in that way as kind of the kitchen runner. And so that works for them. We have had, let me think, some other examples during the holidays. There's a member of our group that will always eat before the meal, and she will come with some Tupperware and say, I'm not hungry right now. Can I take this food back with me for later? Even if she can't eat it, it makes the host feel comfortable knowing that she wants and appreciates this meal that they've prepared for them. She takes it and prepares it later, and that works for them. We have other people in our community that feel very comfortable with their dysphagia and will say, I'm going to use my feeding tube at the table with you because I'm comfortable with that. Is that okay with you? And if that's a group that's comfortable with that, it helps with that inclusion. There's another person in our community where during the table, when they all sit down, this is during Thanksgiving, she brings a bowl and she passes around note cards and everybody writes down what they're thankful for. And while people are eating, she reads them out loud. And so instead of eating her meal, she's still partaking in this family tradition and sitting around the table in that way. So those are just some examples that come to mind for me. Cate, do you have others that you can think of?
Those are a lot of the same ones that a lot of my patients also use. Another one I had was that I had a patient tell me he brings a blender with him and will tend to just put whatever food that is brought to the event, to the holiday. He tries to alter it so that it makes it a little easier, and he'll eat in private but still be able to kind of sit with everyone while they're eating and take the food and sit somewhere else quiet by himself. I have a lot of tube feeding patients who also ask the same questions, about seeing if people are comfortable with them feeding themselves at the table or whether or not they need to go find somewhere private. But a lot of game nights, a lot of people mentioned also they bring note cards to talk about what they're thankful for so that they can do other things while people are eating so that they can kind of separate themselves and kind of decentralize the food aspect of holidays.
Some of these sound like things that we should all be doing anyway, right? Because I'm really resonating with the focus on connection and being supportive, right? Like finding ways that we can support our loved ones while also still connecting with family and friends and being a part of activities and celebrations and wherever those things occur, whether they are in your own home or at a family or friend's house. So, are there holiday traditions that you guys have adapted to fit your new normal? I hate the word new normal, but for lack of better language, I'm going to use it. But are the things that you guys have adapted that have become sort of like, oh, this is what we do now around the holidays?
Mom, I don't know if you have a good answer here. I feel like we're also like in that interesting stage of life where my sisters and I are my sisters are recently married. I'm engaged. My oldest sister has a baby, so we're still kind of like figuring out the traditions, whether that be coming home for Thanksgiving or having to do that every other year or whatever it is. And then I'm coming home for Hanukkah this weekend, so we're still making latkes, but we're still figuring out what the traditions are. But whenever we can be together, we definitely have some good meals at the table, go on some walks, play some cards. Yeah.
And I have the applesauce puffing on the stove, and it's going to be smooth. Exactly. No, but I think Natalie's right. I mean, I don't think we have a new normal. I think for us, things evolve, and everyone's pretty happy, and having a baby in the mix is our new normal.
Thank you. Wonderful. One of the people in our chat asked a really good question that I'll open up to the whole panel here. But a lot of holiday celebrations take place at restaurants, company parties, and such. She's looking for suggestions for those types of events. She feels that the environments can be really loud and so therefore difficult to sometimes communicate with people. And so she's looking for some suggestions or advice for those types of settings.
Make sure you have a good companion with you to help you speak. I find that a lot of people can't understand me. And if someone is with me, my husband or my daughters, they, help me get through the evening and enjoy myself. Have a good companion.
Yeah. Any other suggestions?
Gonna say, it's not always my favorite one, but a lot of my patients, struggle with eating at restaurants and eating in loud environments like that. They tend to eat beforehand or find things that are easier for them to eat if it's specifically related to something around food. But definitely the companion there so that they can speak for you and speak with you so that everyone can understand, especially when it's a very loud, kind of chaotic environment.
Wow. That's a hard one. It's a really hard one. Because it forces you to have to rely on someone else, right? So it's a harder one to maybe navigate. And for families who might be struggling to find the right balance this year, are there any tips that you'd suggest for ways to create those meaningful holiday traditions that center connection and joy? Are there any tips that you guys might have? That's for any of you.
think bringing the survivor into the planning aspect and asking them what would be most meaningful to you, what are your limitations, what would you enjoy, and planning around that would be very helpful rather than going on assumptions that they would prefer to do these things. Maybe they do enjoy sitting around the table, or maybe they do want to frost cookies. Asking them and letting them kind of be the guide in those situations.
Anyone else? Yeah, I think communication is really it really seems to be a part of the key to this is really communicating with people and letting people know what are some of the challenges you're having and talking talking as a family or talking in a group with whoever um, to really say this is what's hard and let's think of other ways that we can still connect and have fun and enjoy the holiday without it feeling like, this additional piece is kind of bringing people down or feels sort of burdensome to the survivor and to the family so those are some great helpful tips. So we've got some other comments here. Are there any foods that people might avoid during treatment, or are there foods that can make the side effects worse?
So depends, what your side effects are. I would say the foods to kind of avoid, especially if you're having any of that burning sensation, avoiding anything too spicy, too acidic, like tomato-based products, avoid citrus foods, things like that. Just because they can kind of irritate more of the taste buds, and likely cause more of like a burning sensation. Those would be specifically foods I would avoid during treatment. Trying to think of anything other specific. Mostly a lot of it's related to taste. So if things with really strong flavors or smells are very bothersome, kind of keeping it more bland during treatment is going to be the best way to kind of morph your diet so that it's not as irritating to your saliva, to your taste buds, to your swallowing.
What's one thing that um, for Robin or Natalie, what's one thing that you wish people understood about supporting someone with their eating challenges?
Often, like when I'm eating, I talk a lot to dislodge whatever is stuck. And everyone wants to get me water. I cannot take a sip of water when that's going on because that food is stuck in my throat. So you just want people to of course, I understand people want to help me, but sometimes you just have to cough and do it on your own. So it's a hard balance. Sometimes everyone wants to be at your aid, but you're like, just give me a minute. So
It's a good point. It's a
Yeah,
good
I
point.
feel like if we have a dinner with just our immediate family, we all know that. So my mom's kind of doing her thing, and we're all just going about our normal conversation. Where when other people come in, you're like, "No, it's okay, she's fine." But
yep.
everyone's just trying to help, so it's always nice.
Yeah.
But recognizing the best of intentions, right? It's almost like you need to put like at your name tent, right? Should also say, please don't offer me water when I'm coming.
Yeah, it's like help or I'm okay.
Right, I'm okay or I need help. That's right. Cate or Elizabeth, do you have any thoughts on what are some things that some of your patients have shared with you that you wish people that they wish people knew?
One thing that I hear frequently is when people are going through treatment, people want to help and be good intentioned, and they give food as gifts. Um, that's one of this isn't necessarily for a caregiver, but information that patients and caregivers wish others knew about their situation. I think that's one where so often we gift food to others and they can't accept that or eat that. So that's one thing I've heard from our community.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I also have a lot of patients, with caregivers that maybe don't know the extent of a lot of their symptoms. So they want to do everything that they can, but they don't know, the pain might get worse, the dysphagia might get worse, the taste is going to continue to disappear during the treatment. So I have a lot of patients that, struggle with having that communication during the treatment with their loved ones that maybe don't live with them or that don't see them every day, but see them on the weekends during their course of treatment. So it's kind of, they have a hard time communicating that to them. So sometimes they might be a little more closed off during the treatment and not being as expressive about what's going on with them.
Yeah. For someone who's newly diagnosed and worried about enjoying food again, and this is open for everyone, what is some words of advice? Love to hear from each of you.
Well, I don't want to be negative, but for me, it's gotten harder. But to over time, I mean, 13 years since my last surgery, so it's been a while, but I have both necks radiated, and swallowing has gotten more difficult. But yeah, smoothies, I love my smoothies and pureed soups. And, I mean, you just have to keep working on it and trying different things. And there are moments that you can eat. There are times you can and times you can't. So just have to be patient with yourself.
I think, yeah, like Robin's saying, give yourself some grace. Know that every day is going to be a little different, like I had said before. Trying new things sometimes too, because especially if you're um, coming out of treatment and now, taste is still off, try things that maybe you didn't like prior to treatment because maybe you have a taste for them now. Maybe that's something that brings you joy because it wasn't your favorite thing. And now, oh, I can eat this. I never liked salmon and now I'm eating salmon all the time, trying different things and enjoying the foods that you can tolerate and giving yourself that grace to find those different foods and different consistencies and textures that are easy for you to eat.
I guess my piece of advice would be to find your people, your support system, your healthcare providers that are on your team. If you have the wrong people, find new people, but really set yourself up in good company.
Natalie, any thoughts?
Yeah, with my mom, I think it's also like finding what consistently works. Like every day she has oatmeal for breakfast, and that's a great food. And so then bringing that with you when you travel so that you can make sure you're still having consistent good meals throughout. It's really important too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have someone from the chat shared, enjoy what you can, right? Enjoy what you can. Some or a lot of food aren't what you remember, or they can taste different, similar to what Cate was saying, something that maybe you didn't like before, you suddenly like now. I think the idea of patience and compassion and grace are really important. It seems like there are ways in which that things change over time. Um, Either more challenging or less challenging, but also on days that are challenging, just say, hey, today's not the day this is going to happen. Tomorrow's a whole nother day, right? So to have this kind of grace. And I love the idea of making sure that you have your people around you, also the people that support you, the people that hold you up, the people that are understanding, that have compassion and patience and grace for you and your and the challenges that you're having also. And the challenges for our caregivers also. Um, Natalie, we just gave advice to for people who are facing food challenges, but what about some challenges for some of the caregivers out there? Do you have advice? Do you have any advice for them that you would like to share?
I guess in our family, it's like being patient is very important as a caregiver, making sure that my mom is, she said before, she's often the person cooking for us and providing us with these great meals, but we all have to do our part in making sure that she's also eating and taking the time for herself. So as a caregiver, I think it's important to like be cognizant of what your person is actually taking in, and then when needed giving a nudge of maybe we need to rethink when you're eating or how much you're eating, and maybe we need to take times of, maybe it's not around the holidays but maybe in between, of what can we change about your current day to day to make sure you're getting more calories in, and helping provide more ideas when they're maybe being a little stubborn about new ideas.
Happens to the best of us. Well, thank you all so much for being part of today's webinar. We really appreciate your knowledge and your expertise. And thank you also to our people that are watching us. We had some great comments and some wonderful insights and really good questions that were really wonderful. So as we come to a close for today's webinar, we want to thank each of our speakers for sharing their time, their expertise, and their personal stories so generously. Your voices, insight, and experiences made today's conversation incredibly meaningful. And to everyone who joined us today, thank you for being part of this community and for spending this time with us. We know the holidays can carry a mix of emotions. We hope today's stories and recipes offer comfort, encouragement, and perhaps a few new ideas to bring into our celebrations. Before we officially sign off, we'd love to gently remind you about a few ways to stay connected. If you or someone you know is a thyroid cancer survivor, we'd love to see you at our next free webinar on January 23rd. What's new in advanced thyroid cancer treatment? This live patient-focused program will feature leading thyroid experts sharing the latest updates, practical guidance, and real-time answers for patients and caregivers navigating advanced disease. And if today's conversation resonated with you, we invite you to explore our catalog of prior webinars. Over the past year, we shared many powerful conversations featuring survivors, caregivers, and medical professionals. You can find these programs on our YouTube channel and across the social media platforms. If you or someone you love is navigating thyroid, head or neck cancer, we encourage you to visit the Thank Guide. It's a comprehensive resource created for patients, survivors, and caregivers, offering reliable information, helpful tools, and guidance for every stage of the journey. On behalf of everyone at the Thank Foundation, thank you again to our panelists and to every one of you who joined us today. We wish you a warm, comforting, and happy holiday season, and we hope to see you again very soon.